So I actually use Google Plus quite a bit too. You know, the way I look at any of these social platforms that come out, I like to just try it by immersion. You know, like I like to get in there and dig in and say, well, what's possible with these? You know, like what's the way that people interact? Like, because really, at the end of the day, all of this social media is about how do we connect people? How do you get in touch with people? And so the question I always ask is, well, how are people going to interact and exchange information and data? So I hopped on Google Plus, and it is an interesting platform for discussion. And there has been rich discussions like the one he mentioned. And I think one of the keys to that discussion really propagating is partially what he said, you know, the Twitter feeding it. But the other thing is, on Google Plus, it's really easy to share a conversation with your own stream. So for example, he tagged me in that discussion, and I saw it, and I was like, wow, that's a pretty interesting discussion. So then I shared it with I think I have 500 or so followers or in my circles on Twitter, on Google Plus. And so I shared it with them, and so then it drove even more conversation. And so then they see multiple people sharing it, and then you drive this really interesting conversation on Google Plus. The problem with Google Plus, though, is that there aren't that many people on it yet.
Yeah, only 70 million.
Yeah, but I mean...
But how many are actually using it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, 70 million Gmail users that are on Google Plus. You know, but, you know, so like there is rich interaction with a small subset of people. If you're looking for the broader market, for me, Twitter is great for broadcasting and finding people and making that initial connection. But I also use, which I think Neil mentioned, LinkedIn for me is really, really interesting. It's a great way to interact with people, and there's something unique about LinkedIn. I mean, we've had forums for who knows how long, right? Forums where you could go online and say stuff. The problem is, when you're on a forum, you're not linked to any sort of profile that holds you accountable. Well, on LinkedIn, you have your whole profile there. So if you come and you tell me, I love XYZ EHR vendor, and I click to your profile and I see, oh, you're the marketing person for XYZ EHR vendor, well,
yeah,
now I have...
no wonder you better love them.
Right? Like, it gives you some context in the discussion that is really interesting and valuable. And plus, you know, there's a lot of groups that are really large and have really interesting discussions. So I start a lot of discussions, and also, you know, from the blog posts that I do, I usually use those to spark the discussion, and then I end up getting a lot more blog posts out of the content and discussions that happen on LinkedIn.
So, John, remind me, do you have on your blog post, because there's widgets you can put on your blog that will allow someone to click on it, and it creates a tweet, click on it, it sends it to their LinkedIn, click on it, and it sends it to Google+. Do you use those tools?
Yeah, so I have one that does Google+, Facebook, and Twitter.
You have one that's automatic, right?
Right, so there's the ones that let your users send it to their Twitter and to their Facebook page and everything like that if they want to share.
Right.
But what Neil is saying is that, you know, we create a lot of blog posts across 14 websites, right? I don't want to go in and post every one of those to Twitter. So there's a bunch of services out there. I use, it's called Deliver It, DLVR.IT. And so it basically sucks in the feed from my blog post and automatically posts it to Twitter, to Facebook, to, it doesn't do LinkedIn yet because they haven't opened up the profile for it yet, and it doesn't do Google+. Neither of those have opened it up for this type of automation, which is also part of the reason why Google+ hasn't expanded the way they could, but I think they will open that up so that you can auto content there as well.